Lesson 4.8, the discriminant. By looking at something called the discriminant, we can determine the number and type of solutions a quadratic equation will have. If you recall, in the last example, we talked about the difference between the three examples that we looked at. In the first example, we had 2 real solutions. In the second example, we had 1 real solution. And in the third example, we had 2 imaginary solutions. The discriminant is the part of the quadratic formula that is underneath the radical. Because it is underneath the radical, it will determine the number and type of solutions. If we look down at the chart, if the sign of the discriminant is positive, that means underneath the radical we will have plus or minus the square root of a positive number. We are able to do that, and we will get 2 real solutions. If underneath the radical is a negative number, and we saw this in the third example, that is going to produce 2 imaginary solutions, because we know negative numbers underneath a square root produces an imaginary number. In the second example, we saw what happened when the part under the square root was 0. And when that happened, everything went away, including that plus or minus, which means we only had 1 real solution. So again, if the number underneath the radical, in other words, if the discriminant is positive, we get 2 real solutions. We need to make sure I put real in there, 2 real solutions. If the discriminant is negative, we will get 2 imaginary solutions, and if the discriminant is 0, we will have 1 real solution. Looking down here, I'd like you to check the discriminants for A, B, and C. Go ahead and do that now, and I'm also going to give you the answer, so pause this prior to doing the work. In A, your discriminant should produce two imaginary solutions because your discriminant is -4. In part B, your discriminant is 0, and you will get 1 real solution. In part C, your discriminant is positive, which means you will have 2 real solutions. So if you notice the directions, it doesn't ask for you to tell what the solutions actually are. You can just simply list 2 imaginary, 1 real, and 2 real after finding the discriminant.